Good evening, everybody. Welcome back then to another LFM stream here for round number 11 of the Case King Pro Series here in Season 15. That is right. After a very, very busy season so far, we've made it to the penultimate round of the championship here in South Africa, and it is going to be an incredible race without a doubt. Tonight, we do have the opportunity to crown our Season 15 champion. Currently, George Boothby, the man in the hot seat for that position. The winningest driver in Case King Pro Series history. But, despite all of that, has never managed to close out a title in the final stages of the season. But, consistency has been key and his friend over the course of this championship so far. Whilst he hasn't actually won a race so far this season, remarkable statistics on that front, as well as having 10 different winners in the opening 10 rounds of the championship. He is still putting fantastic results week in and week out in exactly the way that you would anticipate for a driver of his caliber. Now, in terms of the championship situation, I can give you a little bit of a breakdown of what we are interested in for this evening. Fundamentally, it is the title fight between George Boothby and Nicholas Huben, and these are the ways in which George Boothby can close it out. Fundamentally, Nicholas Huben has to finish on the podium. If he finishes anything less than second place, that's it. Job over and done with. George Boothby will be your champion. However, if Nicholas Huben were to win the race, George Boothby would need to finish in 7th place or better to become champion. And if Huben were to finish second on the podium, George Boothby would merely need a 9th place finish or better to get enough points to close out the series. So it is definitely all in favour right now of the British driver, but we know how quickly the situation can change here in the Case King Pro Series and how things can be completely turned on the head in a matter of corners. So I have to wait and see how it plays out for the action for this evening, because it is going to be an absolute cracker. And Kyalami is a true hardcore driver's circuit. Pushes everyone to their limits and to try to see what they can achieve in these fantastic GT3 cars, and it's going to be a brilliant host, I have no doubt, for this penultimate round of the season, and potentially the round that crowns our champion. So, we took away from last week at Imola with Luke Whitehead winning that race. And it was a fantastic performance from the Porsche driver, battling away with unlikely candidates to the podium. Sam Gaskell for Visceral Esports. A brilliant drive from him in the Lamborghini. And then those two getting ahead of the pole man, Eric Del Fanta, who, of course, is also in the fight for the top 3 positions in the championship as well, of which there will be some brilliant prizes on offer at the end of the season. We'll take you through those in just a short moment. But we will have a bit of a look and a gander to see how our drivers are getting on for their final few moments of practice and getting themselves dialed in, ready to go into qualifying very, very shortly. Because we always talk about these final moments, how important they can be. Now, it's a 60-minute race tonight, so not quite the most dependent upon, longevity in the tyres, tyre wear, all of that sort of business. But it, of course, is a key factor, and consistency throughout the race and good race pace is key in order to bring those points home. That is where the points are scored. But equally, qualifying can sometimes be just as pivotal, if not even more so, and it can be an absolute lottery as to where you start on the grid and how that may impact your race. Here at Kyalami, turn 2, the first heavy braking zone around this fantastic circuit, and it has, enough space to accommodate up 7-8 cars wide on the entry, and then probably whittle it way down to about 4 by the time we get to the exit of that corner. And that can lead to some interesting shenanigans, to say the least, on the opening lap of the race. And I imagine for the man that we're looking at the moment, George Boothby, knowing what he has to deliver this evening, whilst he is a racer through and through, he'll be going for the win. He'll be wanting to deliver some fantastic points and take to a top step of the podium for the first time over the course of this season, and to win the championship on the high as well. But at the same time, he will want to close out this series, and right now a decent top 10 finish is primarily what he needs to deliver. So let's see how he gets on for the evening, as Kylo, our resident statistician, in the chat. Also, big welcome to all of those joining us already. 11th different winner today, George Boothby. Yeah, who would have thought we made it 11 races into a 12-round season, and that this man, the winningest driver in this series, would have gone without a win. We've got some pretty big names in the field for this evening as well to spice things up. This man is one that I've spotted in the list. Gregor Schill driving the BMW for BS Plus competition, of course. Now, this is a man that is exceptionally quick, and he's got nothing to lose. He is just here to race, have fun, and I think he could be an interesting one amongst the pack, because of course Nicholas Huben, he'll want potentially some of these, maybe I want to say almost rogue entities to the fight, because if he can get some more cars between himself and George Boothby, that obviously goes heavily in his favour. But right now, as things stand, currently, Boothby at the pointier end of the grid after that practice session, while Nicholas Huben down in P7. Now, of course, we don't know how those final elements of practice were done for some of these drivers. Were they going around on heavier fuel loads, get themselves ready for race trim conditions, or were they trying to get everything dialed in for that 15 minutes of qualifying that we're moving over to in just a short moment? Who knows? I'm sure we'll get our answers very, very shortly, as tonight I think is going to be an absolute cracker. We've got some big names in the field, some names contesting for some fantastic prizes, and the pointy end of the grid once again we've got the likes of Sam Gaskell, Lamborghini, Visceral Esports. What a season they have had in terms of their performance. Always a team to go strong, but they have been on absolute fire over the course of this season. They'll be looking to see if they can get a couple more wins, some podiums as well to close out the championship. As meanwhile, first man out on circuit, he's number one man in the server and a number one man in the standings. It will be George Boothby, the championship leader, as they all fly out the pit lane in the background. What a fantastic sight that is always to see every time we launch one of these qualifying sessions, as they make their way through this tricky and technical circuit, getting the tyres warmed up to temperature. Pressures in the right window as well, so pivotal to the way that these GT3 cars handle. And it will be the two Veloce Esports Mustangs, George Boothby and Aidan Walsingham. They'll be the first two out on track. And in 75 minutes' time, we will know, are we taking this championship to the finale, or will it go the way of George Boothby this evening? And yeah, I can't help it, the commentator in me, for a tense finale, wishes to see if it would go the full 12 races, but, George Boothby, touch wood, with my table, has been able to deliver a fantastic string of performances over the course of this season. How it hasn't resulted in a race win so far is testament to the competition, the level of competition that he has been up against over the course of his championship. But the fact that he's got himself in this position with 2 races to go certainly has shown his consistency, and that is often so pivotal. We'll go on board with the championship leader, George Boothby, as he enters the final corner, ready to get his lap underway. Then on the power on the exit of turn 16, and then that Mustang will absolutely roar its way into life, deafening, but a beautiful sound to kick things off. And then heading on through the kink of turn 1, easy flat, and then into Crowthorne, heavy braking zone, 75 metres out from the corner. Take a little bit of curb at the apex, help rotate the car on the power as early as you can, squirrely on the exit. Clip your way through Sky Chicane, 3, 4, into Barbecue. Bit of a late entry to this one. Take a bit of curb, can sometimes upset the car. Have to be careful with the grass and the bumps on the exit of turn 5. Now big commitment corner here into Sunset, using all the track that you can get away with on the entry. Small clip of the curb on the apex can upset the car a little bit if you start to hook that one up too much. And then into Clubhouse, tricky braking zone, scrubbing off a lot of speed, and then in towards the S's. Flick your way in for the first apex, trying to make your way over the first curb, tend to miss the second one a little bit more, keep the power to the floor, and then using all of that torque from this mighty Mustang as he roars his way up in towards turn 10, the hairpin. All about the exit. Keeps up good minimum speed there. A little bit twitchy has he got on the power, but you'd have to expect it for a car like this. American muscle to those rear tyres through mineshaft, easy flat for these GT3 cars in qualifying trim. Down the gears, all the rotation and a bit more. Went all the way down to first gear there for the Crocodiles. Now trickiest corner on the circuit, arguably. Cheetah curve, big commitment. Have to be so careful of that sausage curb on the apex, and then try to keep it out of the grass and the gravel on the exit, using all of the width of the circuit and a little bit more was George Boothby as he crossed the line. 39.657. We'll see as the times come in how competitive that is going to be. But I think that's going to be a pretty handy lap time to kick things off. Philip Menard putting him under pressure just behind Mustangs 1, 2, and 3 almost. Except, once again, the Raging Bull of Sam Gaskell in this Lamborghini. Early days in this session, but, I mean, this circuit, we did say last week that this is a car that's traditionally gone quite well around here. And Sam Gaskell fired up by the fantastic form that he had last week, trying to see if he can once again spoil the party at the pointy end of the grid. Fantastic pace from the Visual Esports driver. As looking to the chat, big welcome in from everybody. And seeing here, got a lot of support for various drivers. And big thank you as well for support to the comments box. You guys have been absolutely wonderful over the course of this season. We're actually just one follower away from 3,950 followers, trying to see if we can chase 4,000 by the end of the season. You guys smashed it last week, and we've been getting ever closer to that milestone as we look towards the end of what has been an incredible season. It'd be absolutely fantastic if we could hit that goal by the end of the championship. A big thank you for all the amazing support. Next batch of laps are coming on in. George Boothby not particularly on an improvement. It stands at the moment. In actual fact, he's going to try opening up another lap. I can tell you what though, Philip Menard and Sam Gaskell both moving very quickly. So is Aidan Walsingham. In actual fact, he's heading to the line on a big improvement. Could look to go towards provisional pole. He does. It's a 6-1-2 from the British driver. Philip Menard's back down that one. Sam Gaskell though moving along very nicely. Purple lost a little bit of time though on the exit of turn 16. What's the British driver going to do as he heads towards the line? It's 0.008 of a second behind Aidan Walsingham. He is fired up. Nicholas Huben on an improvement as well. Now these are important laps. He's currently on a 40.0 and his championship rival, but he needs to finish a good considerable number of positions ahead of. He needs to find some time, make his way up the grid. He is going to do so towards the top 5. It's only good enough for P6 though. And alarmingly for him, there's 3 Veloce drivers in front of him, which I don't imagine could be making his life all too easy if they would stay as they were. George Boothby finding time at the moment. Support there for Gaskell, Carpenter, Stuart Rouch and Faulkner in the chat from Pranav, of course, team manager for Visual Esports. A very happy, proud man, I am sure, of the course of their season. Philip Menard is absolutely flying on this lap. He's down 0.3 of a second. They've got half a lap to go, so they make their way through the S's. Of course, he is on home turf, and I believe still without his maiden win. He has come so close time and time again, and it has just been, you know, so tantalizingly within reach. But maybe today is the day where going hell for leather in that Mustang, it can come good for the number 7 car. George Boothby was on improvements. I think he invalidated through Cheetah Curve though. Philip Menard has kept the Delta in the purple all the way. Final corner, 0.3 up. This would be a 0.4, maybe even a 0.3, depending on how he wraps this one up. Aidan Walsingham does find improvement. Timo Carpenter competitive once again in the Bentley, but Philip Menard's about to absolutely shatter the timing sheets. That's a 39.330 there. That is a monstrous lap time from the Mustang driver. Of course, there is still opportunity to improve. Some track evolution as well could be playing into this, but that is a big lap time there from the Mustang driver. As looking on there. The Nightbot once again. It wouldn't be a stream with you wonderful, wonderful people if someone didn't immediately trigger Nightbot into deleting your enthusiastic messages. I reiterate, he tries his best. He loves this as much as you do, but he's just a bit misguided. But fantastic stuff, as there's a lap from the Honda driver, Eric Del Fanta, who, like I say, keep in mind, has got some things at stake as well. He is contesting for those podium positions at the end of this championship, because there are some pretty handy prizes on offer. P1 will look to take away €2,500 worth of coupons for Aztec Sim Sports gear. P2 will take €1,500 coupon for Moses Sim Racing gear, and the third place driver at the end of the season will receive a Black Dagger Gaming PC. Of course, all brought to you by CaseKing.de, the beloved efforts of our fantastic title sponsor, and some wonderful prizes. And you're going to be pretty chuffed to come away with any one of those three, but of course, for pride, if nothing else, they will each be trying to get that top spot. And George Boothby improving once again, a 4.37, still over a tenth of a second away from Philip Menard, but vitally, Nicholas Huber not even sitting inside the top 10. He needs to do far more than that if he is to take the championship to the final round of the season. Prizes, absolutely prizes. We've had prizes in this series for a while. I believe there may even also be some other ones running around in some of the other series on the Low Fuel Motorsports Championship. Of course, you can check out all of the series that they are hosting on their website, but absolutely, we've got some fantastic prizes here with some of the very best on the platform. Eric Del Fanta, out of nowhere, has stitched together a brilliant lap in the middle sector, has found a tenth and a half. This could be towards, his 7,000s away. Tantalizingly close there for the Honda driver. And that car, the Honda, has had some really good resurgences in form between different circuits, and Eric Del Fanta with some business to achieve here. Of course, he took the race win at the season opener and has had a little bit of an up and down season, has brought in though some good consistent results to fight amongst the top, but he'll be looking to try to cement things a little bit more firmly in place this week, because he is in that very close fight with Philip Menard primarily, who provisional pole sitter, meaning we could have that duel between the Italian and the South African for that third place spot in the championship all the way down to the end. And they're not ruled out of P2 in this championship either. I mean, Nicholas Huber right now, he's not having the best of evenings, at least in qualifying, and he's less than 40 points ahead of Eric Del Fanta, 70 points ahead of Philip Menard. For context, for those of you that might be new to the world of the Case King Pro Series, these guys have scored over 10,000 points. And we're talking about differences of 30 or 40. That's the sort of margins that we have going on in this championship, and that's why consistency is absolutely pivotal to your championship campaign. A fantastic livery that we've got on board. I've just noticed the little shark on board now, and Alex Knudsen in the Mustang there. And for Kuston Racing in the number 29 car. And certainly, we'll have to see if we can get a diffuser cam at some point or another of someone sitting in front of this Mustang, as the gnashing teeth of the Great White, I'm sure, will strike fear into his rival in front. Currently on an improvement note by a tenth of a second, will move his way up towards the top 25. Unbelievable, almost the top 20, sitting on 39s. That is an astonishing bit of pace from a lot of these drivers. We've got some other cars improving as well. We've got Lauren Prima in another nicely liveried Mustang, bringing all the colours for this evening, although not quite the racing lines we would have wanted so far with that one. It's currently sitting in P14. He's got a bit of pace in that one. There's 3 minutes left to go in this qualifying session. This is a man that hasn't had the easiest of seasons. Two-time Pro Series champion Marco Bischoff, Team Nitro racing car. Currently trying to see if he can make his way up towards the top 10 potentially. He's dancing around that sort of region on the Delta. Carried a lot of speed on the entry in towards the final corner and carried it towards the line. It's going to be very close, but I think he's going to be just outside of it. He is P12 for the time being. As his teammate, Henrik Gamble in the server. Looking for Noah Reader as well. Not sure if he is around for the evening. I don't think he is, but Noah Reader, previously the kind of right-hand man to Marco Bischoff. But as of late, certainly over 1 lap pace, has delivered some fantastic performances. Meanwhile, Stubenrauch, he finds some time up into the top 5. That's Nicholas Huber now down to P10. Got 4 Mustangs, well, 5 Mustangs inside the top 6. So one might suggest that these cars are running pretty well here. But we have got the likes of the Honda of Eric Del Fanta, Timo Carpenter in the Bentley, Sam Gaskin in the Lamborghini. We've got Jan Philipp Nuremberger in the Aston Martin. Great effort there from him in the number 18 car. That is an astonishing bit of pace that he has brought together there. And got himself sitting in front of the man that has won a race so far this season. P2 in the championship, Nicholas Huben. So great job from him to find that pace. Jardier back with us this week as well. He's sitting P15. For Jardier's standards, always, a fantastic contender in the race, can really string together the performances, especially lap 1, where it can matter so much. Wow, Nuremberger really going to the very edge of the track on the entry there. Benefited him as well. Big gain on the Delta. But, yeah, Jardier, P15 at the moment in the Aston Martin, a car that will probably be a stronger platform in the race, and it's going to be over for 1 lap pace for this circuit. So putting himself in relatively good position. Nuremberger coming to the line then is going to find a 1/10 of a second. P7 there for the Aston Martin driver, and that is a benchmark to those looking at this car about what is achievable in this platform. There's less than a minute left to go in this session right now. Philipp Menard about to start his final lap of the session. Eric Del Fanta, I believe he'll be able to start one more. George Boothby, this will be his final run of qualifying as well, so I have to see how he gets on. But very tight at top. 7 thousandths to Del Fanta, 17 thousandths to George Boothby, and then Luke Whitehead just a few hundredths further behind than that. And right now, also 3 Veloce drivers inside the top 5, 2 bolstering those positions behind George Boothby. So certainly, at least in terms of qualifying, not looking the greatest right now for Nicholas Huben in terms of his fight for the championship. But George Boothby, like I say, he's delivered so many consistent results, but you never quite know what's going to happen in the Case King Pro Series. Michael Frey, Jardier, and Johannes Price finishing their qualifying session, as well as a few other drivers. So last laps coming on in, but at the pointy end of the grid, Boothby, Del Fanta, Menard all on quick laps. Del Fanta the fastest of anybody in the opening sector. Menard, though, also going quickly. But George Boothby, see if he can find some time. And Walsingham also briefly up on the Delta, so it's not done yet. Luke Whitehead won't take another pole position. Last week's race winner, he will start no higher than P4, but George Boothby going all guns blazing in towards the final corner. He might have done just about enough here to topple to the top of the timing sheets. What's he going to do in the number 1 car? He does go P1 for the time being, and it's game on to Philipp Menard. Philipp Menard is out of it. He has binned it on the exit of Cheetah Curve, so the South African won't take pole on home soil. It's all eyes on Eric Del Fanta, the Honda driver. He's been to the top of the grid on multiple occasions so far this season, but last week on home turf, it didn't quite come together. Lap 1, turn 1, went too deep into the braking zone, and from that point onwards, it just was never able to get back into the fight for the race win. But with a spring in his step, a fight for P3 with him as well, and an opportunity here to score some big points. He's invalidated it, that's it. Done and dusted with. And George Boothby starting his evening off in the best way possible and getting himself to pole position as we take a little bit of a revisit for a moment through the championship standings, and a reminder there of the margins amongst our top 3 for the evening. But George Boothby doing more than he needed to do in that session, and right now Boothby P1, Nicholas Huben P10 on the grid. Those are some big differences, and that's the first repeat pole sitter that we've had this season. So we've had 1 repeat result. It only took 11 races to achieve it, but George Boothby managing to get a pole position. Of course, it's not the first time. You wouldn't under normal circumstances feel that surprised by that statistic, but it's just, the level that as we have had over the course of season 15 and how it has changed hands so many times, and the fact that the winningest driver, the championship leader, hasn't managed to take a race win has just showcased to the absolute maximum how fantastic this season has been. And I have no doubt that as we make our way ready for a penultimate evening's worth of action here in the Pro Series, it is going to be just the very same. But George Boothby getting his evening underway in the absolute best way possible with a pole position. He'll be absolutely ecstatic about that, I have no doubt. So, it will be Mustang lockout on the front row with Philip Minnaar just being pipped to the post at the very end there by a few hundredths of a second. He starts P2 with Eric Del Fanta, who could be very interestingly placed for turn 2 here on the first lap of the race. A Honda will be quick off the line, as will this car. Luke Whitehead, last week's race winner. He starts in P4. He certainly knows how to win races from anywhere in the field. Aidan Walsingham starts in P5, another car at the pointy end of the field in the championship standings. Justin Stubenrauch, the driver that took the race win over Spa-Francorchamps a few rounds ago. What a final few laps that was there. Jan-Philipp Neurenberger, absolute standout qualifier there. Brilliant results from the Aston Martin driver. He starts ahead of this man who is continuing his fine form. Maybe would have wanted a little bit more from that session, but it's not all too bad. He's lined up with his teammate, Timo Karppinen, in the big bad Boatley, starting in P9 for the Finnish driver. And there, the man that would have wanted to see far fewer cars between himself and the Mustang, would have ideally wanted that Mustang in his rearview mirrors for the beginning of this race, but Nicholas Hubert, he'll have to pull an absolute miracle from his starting position to take the championship to the finale. But who knows, miracles can happen in the Case King Pro Series. Michael Frey and Marco Bischoff will make up the 6th row of the grid ahead of Florian Duerkop. Man has taken multiple pole positions so far this season. He perhaps would have wanted a little bit more, knowing that Honda has some great pace. Gregor Schill, keep an eye out for that man in race trim. He'll start in front of Martin Lawrence in the next of the Bentleys. And then Jardier, the number 9 car. Aston Martin, he'll start P16, just shuffled a little bit down the order in the closing stages of that session. Lauren Bremer in a beautifully liveried Mustang. Number 17 car starts in P17 with Johannes Preis making a return. Good effort there from him in number 23 car to start in 18th position, with Sasha Vassner, the next of the Aston Martin drivers, in P19. And then it'll be Brandon Gates in the 20th spot on the grid. That'll be followed up by the likes on Ethan Faulkner in the number 26 Visceral Esports car. Great stuff from that team once again. Vincent Proel in the number 21 Ferrari. He'll start in 22nd place. And Lewis Petzold, a lovely livery on board that car. Very standout one with that. I think if we were going into nighttime conditions, wouldn't have too much trouble seeing that one in the darkness. Henry Gamble starts in 24th place with Samir Foch in the number 14 car. He starts in 25th position as Dinar Agasetkov in the number 34 BMW. He starts on the 13th row of the grid alongside Josef Kufel in the 27th spot. Patrick Nagy in the McLaren. He will start down in 28th position. We round out the top 30 with Dean Zunabovic in the 29th position. And then we have Dan Leibach Edvardsen in the BMW, the Danish driver, closing out the top 30 spots in the field. Alex Knudsen in that rather cheesy grin, shark smile of the Mustang for the evening. He starts in 31st position. Patrick Meyer starts in 32nd place in the next of the Mustangs. Tony Mahoney in the Mercedes. He will start in 33rd place for the Mystery Apex team. Ever hunting for the Apex, aren't we all? As the Lawrence Van Rossum Ferrari starts in 34th position. Giorgio Brioschi in the number 35 starts in 35th place. Nikola Busov in the final of the Lamborghinis. He starts in 36th place for the Croatian driver. And then last but certainly not least, Alexander Krauk starts in 37th place. So that is your field for the evening as drivers making their way around the formation lap, ready to get underway for 60 minutes of action. Also, big thank you to those of you that have followed. We have nudged away over that little intermediate milestone, and now we are just 47 followers away from that 4,000 milestone. Absolutely incredible stuff. Thank you so much for all the amazing support. If you are ready, dialed in for this amazing action, what could be the championship deciding race of the season, do consider giving the channel a follow. The Pro Series ever delivering crazy race after crazy race, and these final 2 races of the season, I have no doubts, are going to be the very same. George Boothby then in the hot seat, hasn't taken a win all season long, but despite not needing to do anything better than secure a solid top 10 finish realistically, regardless of where Nicholas Huben finishes tonight, he has put it on pole position for the 2nd time this season, and now finds himself with an opportunity to close out the championship in style. And I am very well, thank you indeed. I hope you are all ready and going to enjoy this one as much as I am, because it's going to be out to crack. Look at the sea of GT cars all accumulating, getting stacked up, ready for this formation lap to come to a close. And 60 minutes of action, of course. I'll have that mandatory pit stop in the centre of this race. Dry weather throughout by the looks of it. Nothing too much on the horizon there. So it'll be a straightforward race in that respect. But the Pro Series is never straightforward on circuit. I think this is going to be an absolute cracker. So buckling everybody, 60 minutes of action here for the 11th round of the season. Will it be championship to George Boothby? Will we have an 11th different race winner or the first repeat winner? Who knows, but we're about to get underway. Green lights and away there goes. A good start from Eric Delfanta there from the 2nd row of the grid. Immediately getting the jump, so is Luke Whitehead. George Boothby happy to go to the inside to defend. They almost fall wide on the entry. Philip Menard squeezing him. They didn't even contact on the entry. Menard trying to go for glory here around the outside already. George Boothby, he's got a championship to think about when he holds the inside line. He's a racer at heart. They're side by side, 2 by 2 into barbecue. Turn 5. The Mustangs are still alongside each other. But Philip Menard, fantastic run around the outside. He'll have the inside for Sunset Curve. And I think that's going to be all he needs. It is. Into the lead then. Philip Menard goes. Oh, a big cut in the background. That's Stubenrauch, I think. Heavy into the wall. He manages to just about keep it together. Someone else has gone around further down the grid. It's the number 14 of Samir Foch. But my goodness, Menard into the lead then. Boothby 2nd. Luke Whitehead and all of that came out P3. And Delfanta dropping to 4th place. And not what he would have wanted to see here. One of his championship rivals taking to the top place as the top 3 look to break away to without heavy impact for Stubenrauch as they fly out towards the hairpin for the first time. Looking up the inside was Walsingham. A little bit of defence there as well. Sam Gaskell on the charge just behind, a few cars gaining position. Jardier and Marco Bischoff, the 2 title protagonists of a few seasons ago, side by side through Mineshaft for the first time. Sometimes a little bit tricky on the heavy fuel while the tyres are still getting up to temperature. The Aston Martin, oh, big crash in the background. Who was that? Brandon Gates, I think. He's going to come back across to the circuit. It's an evasive manoeuvre from Tony Mahoney. Manages to somehow keep it out the door of the ball. Oh, dear. Samir, he can't do right for doing wrong, can he? Chooses the wrong way to go. Heavy crash there into the left-hand side circuit. I told you it was tricky through that circuit. Part of the circuit on the opening lap. Here we go. Oh, my goodness, it's going to be carnage. In towards turn 1 they'll go. We'll look towards the front of the field. Luke Whitehead. Surely he'll be just bolstering up position behind George Boothby, and he does indeed, but I don't think it's quite so simple further down the order. Jardier, Gregor Schill, as Johannes Price as well, down the inside of Lauren Bremer, and the purple Mustang around the outside. The Mustang will try to hang it. The cameraman has no idea where he's looking. There we go, back to racing pictures, as that was Ethan Faulkner trying to get involved in the action, tries to go from around the outside back towards the inside. Has he got a good run? Not quite enough to stay in single file for the time being. He'll be quick in this 296 through Sunset Curve, these medium high-speed corners, especially when there aren't too much in the way of bumps. Is where this car really shines. That's a big mistake there from the Porsche driver. Is that going to be job over and done with? There's still space for him on the outside. Through the S's, there's a Mustang off in the background. It's chaos here at the beginning of this race. The Porsche just about holds on, as that was the Ferrari Pro L, I think it was, trying to get the run up towards the hairpin. Henrik Gamble sending it down the inside. Might have found the room to get the move done. The 21 and the number 19 car battling for 19th position. The BMW with a run on the exit towards Mineshaft. They will look to go And I think the BMW power shortly on that tighter line is going to get the job done. Vincent Proel is not giving this one up, though, without a fight down the inside in towards Crocodile's Curve as they all snake their way up through Cheetah Curve. These two still side by side. Fantastic stuff, but it will be the BMW that comes out on top there. Meanwhile, Bischoff and Duacop for a second flipping positions. I wonder if there was a mistake there from Florian Duacop on that last lap, but it is Menard that leads by half a second over George Boothby. As they charge on down towards the hairpin once again. Also, Nicholas Huben, one of the drivers on the move, and he really needs to make moves. He's made his way past Jan for the Nuremberger, so he's the lead Aston Martin for now. He's got the likes of Timo Karppinen sitting in front of him, and he needs to gain an awful lot of positions and a lot of misfortune to come the way of George Boothby if he wants to keep the fight alive to the end of the season. Meanwhile, look at this fight towards Sunset Curve. There we go. Lewis Petzold, that was the Mustang you saw go off in the background earlier, and side by side with Alex Knudsen, and it's the perfect time to use this camera. We've only made it 2 laps, and I've already managed to find an opportunity to use it. The Shark bearing down on the rear end of the number 28 car, but it's not enough to hold on to this position, and it will be Petzold that takes this one for the time being. The two Mustangs scrabbling away, as meanwhile Nightbot has once again come down on anybody trying to have fun and get involved in the action. He loves you, really. And we love the joys of Nightbot. We love the joys of Pro Series, and I love all of you as the race continues on. We've only got 5 minutes into this one, of 55 minutes of glorious Pro Series action left to go as they continue to fight and squabble further down the order. Cameraman once again absolutely lost. He finally finds the shots as we make our way in towards Crocodile. Patrick Meyer all over the back end of Patrick Nagy. And Philip Menard, another fastest lap of the race. I tell you what, someone else is looking a bit racy though. Sam Gaskell behind his teammate. And of course, Justin Stubenrauch running around with a little bit of damage. Now I have to see, will there be papaya orders here over Visceral Esports? Will we, because we do have 3 Visceral Esports cars all running absolutely nose to tail at the moment. Will Sam Gaskell be allowed on through, or will he go toe to toe with Stubenrauch? But I have to say, with the way and the behavior that these cars are driving with at the moment, it does feel like the V10 power Lamborghini has a little bit more to work with. No team orders from my side. The message received loud and clear. Pranav letting his boys race it out on circuit. I like your style. And as we make our way to the bottom of the hill, Sam Gaskell pushing on in towards the S's. You see, he's a bit more confident with that first apex. Allows him to open up the run through the S's, and he'll get the initial drive, but then look at the Mustang, and it starts to bugger off. But Sam Gaskell, thinking about maneuver for a brief moment, saw almost a little bit of a twitch in the steering to try and see if he can go down the inside, but not quite able to put it together. But the margin's extremely close. Huben on the gearbox of Timo Karppinen as well. He needs to find opportunities. He needs to find ways through as we look towards the back end of that Boatley. And it's a pretty wide sight. You don't really have much in the way of remaining vision once you're glued to the rear of a car like this. You can just about see the side of it. You think that drivers in the likes of Formula 1 or Open Formula have maybe sometimes a little bit of vision taken away by the likes of a Halo. I don't think it's quite anything. We're driving behind a Boatley. Meanwhile, for the first time in this race, George Boothby, the one able to find a bit of extra pace. Only by 300ths of a second, bear in mind, but you're top 2 right now. George Boothby not really needing the assistance of his Veloce teammates. He is just locked in a fight with Philip Menard as it stands, as those two pulling away from the rest of the grid. The only cars other than Walsingham to lap in the 39s last time around. Visceral Bentley looks excellent. I can't help but think, Brandon, you might just be slightly biased. But I can't disagree, primarily because, as we all know, I love a good Bentley. But Timo Karppinen did a fantastic job in that car once again. It's been great to see that car really be dialed in once again and able to compete for wins. And of course, Paul Ricard, a dominant performance from the Finnish driver earlier on this season. Nicholas Huben trying to use the Aston Martin's strengths. It's such a planted car, it's so predictable, really good. You know, any of those scenarios through the likes of the S's, that's a complicated section to hook up. You've got a good setup on board the car that doesn't wash out too much at the front, doesn't wear the front tyres out too quickly over the stint, and the Aston typically able to preserve its tyres. You can get a great run through there, and they'll be super late on the brakes. The Aston Martin's so good under brakes, but it lacks torque. It lacks, you know, maybe not ultimate straight line, end of straight top speed, but the grunt out of the corner, you know, just never really able to quite deliver. And you see that Bentley absolutely thunders its way out of turn 16. And whilst this is, generally speaking, where you would suggest the best opportunity for an overtake would be around this circuit, for the Aston Martin, no chance. No chance whatsoever. So we'll leave these two to scrap away. Henrik Gamble in the BMW. He's fancying an opportunity on a Visserl sports car down the inside of Ethan Faulkner, and there's contact. It did look like a bit of a dive, and Faulkner's got collected on the apex there. Pranav will be wincing at that one, and he might even have a little bit of further misfortune as well. Josef Kufel sending it down the inside of Barbecue Curve. And Henrik Gamble there, I think, has very kindly and correctly conceded those positions. See, the BMW has returned behind. Meanwhile, Lewis Petzold and Zunobovic sum us on the entry to Sunset Curve. A lot of speed carried on the entry for one BMW. Oh, tries to go down the inside. Did the Mustang there. Couldn't find an opportunity. He'll see if there's a route on the way towards the hairpin. We know that Mustang has got the torque. Good line through the first part of the apex. Wide though through a second part. In actual fact, that could leave Petzold in a bit of trouble from Alex Knudsen behind. We saw these guys squabbling away a bit earlier on, deep on the brakes, maybe a little bit too late on the brakes for the Mustang. Manages to get it just about squared up for the apex though, but you will have to wait for another opportunity. Also, after initially having some gaps grow inside of the top 10, we are starting to see some of these gaps narrowed down a bit, which makes our life very, very exciting. Eric Del Fanta trying desperately to hold on to the back of Luke Whitehead, as that is a new fastest lap of the race from Philip Menard. But look, the gap between Philip Menard and George Boothby on that last lap, 0.03 of a second was the difference between their lap times. Fantastic stuff, and I think absolutely just demonstrates how hard each of these guys have been pushing each other. They both want a race win. George Boothby wants to close out championship in style. Philip Menard wants to claim that elusive win. It's going to be an interesting state of affairs. One way or another, if if those guys stay within the top two, one of them will be very happy. One of them, well, there's a very good chance of both of them are very happy. But certainly, I would put some money on right now, as things stand, that one of them would be ecstatic without a doubt. As we have a little bit of a moment as a Jardier. Oh, that's a big issue there for. Well, he's a happy man most of the time, but Jardier seems to have taken a bit of a moment through Sunset Curve. I would love to show you a replay, but for the sake of stability and make our way to the end of what could be a championship deciding race, I'm afraid that I simply can't. And it's a game crash. Oh, no wonder it sent the server into spiral. After making return for this race, that is absolutely gutting for Jardier. Big frustration for him. Hopefully he can return for the final race of the season and end the season on a high. He has had a bit of a run of form of the last couple of seasons, winning the last race of the championship. So who knows, maybe it's the perfect setup for that one, the 12th round of the season. And absolutely, Philip Menard still fighting for prizes. He is indeed. The points margin between himself and Del Fanta is extremely insignificant. It's really not very different either between themselves and Nicholas Huber. Now, of course, drop scores makes everything a little bit more complicated, all of that stuff. But, certainly Philip Menard is going for prizes inside of his top three. And right now, this is something that could certainly help spark and ignite a really solid boost towards the pointier end of those stats. Say the pointier end. The guys running around in P4 in the standings are one of the tightest championships that we've ever had, and absolutely a big disappointment there for Jardier in the chat. Meanwhile, not quite as much perhaps as this man, Henrik Gamble, after having a moment lap ago with one of the Ferraris. He has gone around at turn 2. Meanwhile, Petzold once again, he goes one way, goes the other. very aggressive driving. He's certainly been amongst the action for this evening so far, and another excuse presents its way to get on board of the Shark livery of Alex Knudsen, bearing down behind the Mustang. And and absolutely, the emo with 5 capital letters also once again struck down my Nightbot. Unfortunately, that does appear to be the case. He tries. As we see here, under pressure towards pointing over the grid. Definitely no team orders over at Visceral Esports. Here's a potential opportunity for Uber. Big moment for Teemu Karppinen there. Got it all wrong on the exit of Crocodiles whilst he was finding an opportunity, or trying to find one, on Sam Gaskell, his teammate, just up ahead. And it gives a little bit of a sniff for Nicholas Huben, but as we go on board the rear diffuser of the Bentley, just look at it, pulls away. Maybe not Mustang territory, but there is just nothing that Huben can fight with. He would have been, you know, I imagine, you know, trying to do some sort of form of rain dance to desperately flip over the odds. It was always destined to be dry around here, but it can rain here at Kyalami, just unfortunately not for this evening. But yeah, that is certainly what he would have needed. He's got good pace by the looks of it in this Aston Martin, but he just can't use it in the places where he's quick. See, through Sunset Curve they go. You see how much earlier the Aston Martin is able to get on the power. Alex Knudsen now goes to pit lane. He's jumped his way back for that one, so not quite sure what happened to him there. We'll go back towards the fight for what is P8 quick mass from the commentary box, as Nicholas Huben again, just no opportunity. Really is either going to have to absolutely send it from downtown, which is so difficult when you're in a train like this. You know, if there's space in front of the car that you're trying to overtake, you can sometimes really dive bomb, you know, finding that space, trying to place your car in such a way that they can't get a run back on you from the corner exit. Teemu Karppinen at Bentley is absolutely rapid on the run down the hill once again. Oh, that's a slide and a half from the Lamborghini, and now this is going to be an interesting run here as they fly on through, and Sam Gaskell in the gravel and bounces away through. Nicholas Huben might be trying to take the pair of them. He needs to take these gambles for the championship. He needs to take risks, otherwise nothing's going to come his way. And it was a little bit argy-bargy through the hairpin, and Jan Philip Nuremberger might be about to say thank you very much and take the lot of them. And he's got a Bentley coming up very quickly behind, trying to close the distance, trying to block one, trying to block two. In towards turn 2 they go. Jan Philip Nuremberger, opportunistic stuff. Teemu Karppinen now side by side on the exit with Nicholas Huben. It's not quite gone to plan. Huben does hold on, and he tries to send one up the inside of the Aston Martin at Barbecue Cove. And Papaya rules went extremely well, but admittedly Pryor said that they didn't have any, so we saw how that came to fruition. Meanwhile, Karppinen trying to see if he can find an opportunity. Sam Gaskell just locked in still behind his teammate there. Might be a little bit grumpy with his compatriot there, but thankfully not too much harm done between those two. Always so tricky to go side by side through there. Meanwhile, actually, Samuel Foch going up for an opportunity on Alexander Kraut. We saw number 14 car around on the very first lap. That tells you how much of a topsy-turvy race it's been. 28th position now for the Mustang driver. Covers the inside line in towards Clubhouse off. Antonio Mahoney squarely on the exit. That Mercedes just behind, but don't think there'll be an opportunity for him to make his way through there. And Foster's signature last to first. Absolutely, well, we've certainly completed the first half of the mission. We'll have to see how the second half goes. He's got 43 minutes remaining, so who knows? Everything is possible in the World of Case King Pro Series. Also, after coming under a little bit of pressure from Philip Menard, George Boothby, excuse me, other way around, going under pressure from George Boothby, Philip Menard has actually managed to extend a little bit of a gap over the number 1 car. That gap almost now up to a second. Samuel Foch runs a little bit wide in the exit of Crocodiles, and absolutely, Sam, you know, for the last component of that journey was definitely mostly defined as a result of that contact on the opening lap. Meanwhile, side by side in through the first couple of corners, that's Duacop and Michael Frey on the rear end of Marco Bischoff, and Honda sends out the inside through Barbecue Curve. Frey should be pretty speedy in the Honda as the flat 6 screams its way towards Sunset Curve, but he's not quite able to get a run onto Florian there. Biggest mover on the grid right now looks to be Josef Kufel and Zunabovic. Further down the order, 7 positions gained. As we have had some penalties come on through. It's been a busy time in the stewards' room as much as it's been in the comms box. We had a 15-second time penalty for the number 27 car. That belongs to Patrick Nagy for something on the opening lap of the race. 15 for number 37. That was Brandon Gates. And I thought we saw Brandon Gates in the wall, admittedly, at one point. So maybe that's for a separate incident prior to that. As Kufel and Faulkner side by side through the hairpin. Kufel managing to hold off the attack from the Ferrari 296 through Mine Shaft. They'll go Faulkner. I've got a feeling might set one up the inside. He's going to have to take towards the outside line, though. Kufel, does he get it stopped? He parks the bus on the apex. And in the end, Faulkner not able to find the room and find his way through to make an overtake on the Porsche. But whilst the 296 isn't the best in a straight line, oh, there's a little bit of contact to the hairpin. Thankfully, it's an absolute kiss. As Faulkner flashing the lights there. I'm not sure too much we've got to flash the lights there about. He did bump. The Porsche Kufel, he can't do anything about that position. McGregor Shield might be able to do something about Michael Frey, who's lost some ground as a result to Florian Duakop and Lauren Prima joining the party as well. As they fly on down towards Sunset Curve. But cannot make anything stick on this occasion. We've had some warnings for some other cars. 10-second time penalty for the number 19. As that belongs to Henrik Gamble. I think that was that for that contact down at the down turn 2. And then a 15-second time penalty for number 22, which I think was the contact that we saw send Henrik Gamble around. That was Lewis Petzold, and that is it in terms of penalties for the time being. And the flash of sorry. And it's always, I mean, that's sim racing, and especially like GTs and the world of ACC. It's amazing, you know, we kind of in you know the real world, you know, people sometimes have this idea of kind of hidden communication, and you can tell what someone is thinking, you know, by the smallest of gestures. The amount of different things that flashing lights can mean in GT racing is quite extraordinary. It can mean get out of my way. It can mean I'm sorry. It can mean what on earth was that? It can mean let's work together. It can mean I'm pitting. It's endless. And how any of them half the time manage to read what each other are doing is remarkable, to be quite frank. And then sometimes you get them just trying to be annoying in the rearview mirror of somebody else. So it's a curious old thing. But what I do love is, you know, as the accuracy, you know, of these sims has improved year on year, and become more and more representative of real-life motorsport, I'm glad that those sorts of traits are exactly the same as what you see in GT racing in real life. It is absolutely one and the same. Meanwhile, interesting times ahead. Pit window has opened. 14 minutes of this race left to go, and George Boothby has gained over the last couple of laps. I think a bit of a mistake from Philip Menard. Has it given George Boothby his first opportunity, really, to look to see if he can make his way past the South African? Now, as he looks played, because both of these cars have had the advantage over those behind. They now have a 3-second gap to Luke Whitehead, Delphanta Walsingham, which is a great little scrap for the final position on the podium spots. So, you know, George Boothby, he can look to go for an undercut here, or he has got that wiggle room with that buffer behind. He could look to go for the overcut and then see if he's got enough of a tyre advantage to make his way past Philip Menard later on, because it does look like he's got better pace and better longevity in that pace. But that doesn't always necessarily mean if you go for the undercut, if the tyres start to wear out, all that business, if that's necessarily the right way to go. So they are going to stay as they were for now. There was briefly a yellow flag. It's further down the order. I think it's Alexander Krauk. It is. As meanwhile, Giorgio Brioschi in the Ferrari. Oh, that was sort of go very wide. I think that was Gamble. They with a bit of damage on board his BMW. As Patrick might have to allow Sammy Foster, might have to allow Tony Mahoney to send out the inside as well. Big dive from the Mercedes driver. Will go on board the rear diffuser of the Mustang on the exit. It's going to be a drag race between them. And you see Sammy there choosing to give the slipstream to the Mercedes. Now, reason for that, he wants these two to lose some more time behind him as they go side by side in towards the first turn. And the Mustang is the faster of the two. So by giving that slipstream over to the Mercedes, it keeps these two side by side, a little bit too much side by side as far as they're concerned, for a bit longer. But it worked perfectly for Sammy. Tony Mahoney not giving this one up in towards Barbecue Curve, but going. It's a tight squeeze on the exit. But the Mustang just about manages to get across the front of the number 25 car. In towards Sunset Curve they go. The Mercedes taking a tighter line on the entry there, but manages to hold on to the rear. But Sammy escaping up the road, much to the delight of those watching in the chat. As also just trying to see Nicholas Huben, so he is number 6 in the server, and we've got no further action by the looks of it for the instant between himself and Teemu Karppinen. So Nicholas Huben, despite that robust overtake on the Bentley driver, as speaking of the Bentley driver, Teemu Karppinen, the first one to come into the pits, makes his way in towards pit lane and is going to go for a pretty hefty undercut. So is Michael Frey by the looks of it, just behind, but Nicholas Huben has got away with that contact. And yeah, absolutely early pits there as they look to try to get the fresh set of tyres on board their car. And whilst these other guys are scrapping away, and as Timo does indeed love a big undercut. Yeah, these guys scrapping away. You know, the principle being you get some clean air, you get some fresh tyres, you lap at a quicker pace, and then when they box, they end up sitting behind you on circuit in an ideal world, or at least putting yourself in a position where maybe you can fight it with them. It will compromise your second stint. You will have weaker tyres to the end of the race, but sometimes if you've been stuck behind a car for ages, you think you got better pace, or especially if you maybe misjudge the tyre pressures for the first stint, it can be quite a good idea to get rid of those sooner rather than later and then ditch those for a better set. There's plenty of reasons why the undercuts can be a viable choice. As Nightbot having an absolute mare in the chat at the moment, that really is taking the bad hammer to each and every single one of you that are sitting in the chat, enjoying this fantastic, crazy race so far here at Kyalami. We are not even halfway through, and it's delivered brilliant racing action so far. If you are enjoying this race, do consider giving the channel a follow. The champion could be decided tonight, but those positions, those prize-winning positions between second and third place will go all the way down to the wire for the season finale next week. It'd be lovely to have as many of you there as possible as this fantastic season continues to create wonderful delight, because we are once again on target for a different winner. We have had a repeat pole sitter. You know, we've managed to change that up a little bit, but right now, you know, our top two drivers, they're looking to take their first win of the season. Luke Whitehead, the next one in tow. As you can see, he's got bigger problems right now. He's got Eric Del Fanta and Aidan Walsingham applying the pressure. So pre-pit stops, Del Fanta, Philomena, Nicholas Huben and Aidan Walsingham all in the fight for those prizes from P2 and P3. With, of course, George Boothby looking to seal the championship right now. But he will still want to finish this with a race win. He loves winning, and he is oh so good at it. But he does need to find a little bit more if he is going to do that today. Meanwhile, Teemu Karppinen blasting his way down towards turn 2, side by side with Nuremberger. Going to be very close on the exit. The Bentley will try to get the power down. Those tyres will be up to temperature, and it's just enough to keep the Aston Martin behind in towards Barbecue Curve. Great stuff from the number 11 car. Gives a little bit of a slide to the crowd and then makes his way on down. Now these two, if they're smart about it, they will work together over the coming laps, try to use this undercut pace to their advantage and try to get their second stint in as best place possible. Meanwhile, Sasha Vasta looking to go down the inside. Can't make his way past the Bentley. Absolutely, yeah, the Bentley does occupy quite the space on the circuit. And somehow, some way, he managed to squeeze his way on through there. Meanwhile, George Boothby still hunting around the rear end of Philomena. We've got a little bit of traffic up ahead. That's number 19 of Henrik Gamble, who, of course, has had an absolutely torrid race so far. But he has got Two drivers that have been absolutely pushing each other to the limit so far. They've started to fall out for 39s. They were in that region of times for so long. But oh so consistent. But equally, you do just get the sense that George Boothby is just biding his time somewhat behind. He knows he doesn't need to risk all too much, but he'll be planning this one out. He knows how to win races. Whilst statistics from this season wouldn't necessarily suggest it, he is the winningest driver in Pro Series history for a reason. And Minnaar feeling the pressure, absolutely. There's a lot at stake for Philippe Minnaar tonight. He's trying to go for his maiden win in the Case King Pro Series. He's also trying to surge his championship campaign for those second and third place prizes in the standings. And on top of that, if that all wasn't enough pressure as well as having then the winningest driver in Pro Series history bearing down on you in your rearview mirror, he's also trying to do it on home soil as well. And I imagine it'd be a pretty special feeling for the Mustang driver if he could do it. He's put together some brilliant performances at time. He's taken multiple pole positions, but never quite come together. Meanwhile, Faulkner and Agazitikov in the number 34 car. That's a good run for Ethan on the exit. He is going to take towards the outside line, towards Sunset Curve. They will look to go. The BMW holds the inside, but the Ferrari is so strong on those medium and high-speed corners. He's got enough of an overlap to keep his nose in it. In Fort Clubhouse, they'll be a little bit, almost just about a millimetre or so apart, but they managed to stay door to door the entire way, but eventually the Ferrari takes it. Fantastic overtake from Ethan Faulkner and brilliant spatial awareness from both cars there, as they gave each other just enough room. And could be 80 top 10 finishes in 90 races for George Boothby today. My goodness, what a statistic that is as well. Meanwhile, Nicholas Huben into the pits and out and underway once more. He knows he needs to do something different. And right now, he's running out of time to make up those overtakes, especially if he wants to do anything about George Boothby. And he would need to do quite a bit. And I think he could be in a little bit of trouble here because Timo Karppinen is coming bearing on down and maybe not going to be the most happy about the moves earlier on. Tries to send it down the inside of the turn 2. Tyres were warmed up, fired up, and I think Karppinen's fired up as well. We'll go on board with the Bentley driver, who's absolutely driving the wheels off the Bentley. Trying to see, can he find opportunity towards Sunset Curve? Oh, you never quite know when a Bentley driver is in control or is having a horrific crash. Because every entry for every corner is just a handful of oversteer. You see, we turn on in. That was fairly dainty. That wasn't so bad. Karppinen's actually now going to start driving really quite nicely, just to annoy me on board as we see his steering inputs into the braking zone. A couple of corrections there. He starts to squeeze the power on board the Bentley. Is actually keeping the back end of that car now alarmingly under control. So good stuff there from the Finnish driver, but he certainly went hell for leather a moment ago. Now, here we go then. So, in response to some of those cars undercutting, George Boothby has decided to do the same. And looking at the lap times, so Karppinen, last time around, he did a 40.1. Now, bear in mind, that was even with the likes of Huben and, those ahead. Philippe Minnaar, last time around, did a 40.2. Incredible pace there relative to some of those behind. 40.8, 0.7s. That is monstrous stuff from Philippe Minnaar. But he was only about 0.3 of a second in front of this man, George Boothby, who is going to be trying to go big here. As meanwhile, that is disastrous for Nicholas Huben. Went super wide on the run through turn 2, and he's lost 2 positions in the process because Stubenraut, Gaskell, and Karppinen have made their way back in front of the Aston Martin driver. What's Jan-Philipp Nuremberger going to look to do? He will stay behind the man. It's P2 in the standings. And unfortunately, has just not quite put that one together and has paid the price of it. Now, we see Philippe Minnaar come into pit lane. What must he be thinking? He'll be looking to try to spot his marks here with C. Does he get a good launch on the jacks? There's a natural favour joining in. Aidan Walsingham. Aidan Walsingham coming in for his stop as well. But George Boothby making his way through Mineshaft then. And he is going to be going very, very quickly through the crocodiles. We'll go on board with George Boothby, and we'll keep an eye on that track map. You're trying to keep an eye for the number 7 car getting underway in a pit lane. He's just sitting behind the number 3 as it stands right now, so he should start to get moving. There he is. You can see that dot underway, making his way to pit exit. There is Philip Menard. Here comes George Boothby. He's got an absolutely monstrous run towards turn 2, but Philip Menard could still look to defend this. Boothby all the way towards the inside line. He's going to sweep towards the outside line. Menard to the inside. Boothby sweeps around the outside, and the undercut has done it. He's into the lead, and he's trying to close out this championship in style, and trying to see if he can bring the title home with a win to his name in the penultimate race of the season. He got pole position over the local man, but Philip Menard, undercut by a single lap, now drops a place, and it's all hands on deck between these two. Boothby, he knows how to close out races. He can withstand mighty, mighty pressure, but Philip Menard, he'll have a bit of a spark in what he is running in that Mustang, trying to see what he can achieve. But locked underneath the rear wing. Disappointment there for Pranav in the chat. But these two Mustangs, they've put on a hell of a show so far, and I think this next 26 minutes are going to be extremely interesting. At times, their laps were separated merely by a few thousandths of a second. Both made undercuts and overcuts work this season. Absolutely. George Boothby, you know, he has been a championship contender time after time, and that's the reason why. He is able to put together these races, and he's just so quick every occasion. His racecraft, even on the days where qualifying doesn't quite come together, he's able to work his way towards the front. He's so good in every single setup, but just over the past few seasons, it hasn't always quite come together. Seasons where he's been dominant, he hasn't always been in enough races to really go for the championship, but the last few championships, he's been here the entire time. There haven't been any excuses when it's come to participation. There's just been some remarkable drivers, the likes of Luke Whitehead, Amadeo Castorino, Grant Carreras, pipping him to the post each and every occasion. Malnowski as well. But maybe, just maybe today is a day that all changes. Martin Lawrence having a fantastic side-by-side moment. A little bit of contact with Vincent Proel in towards turn 2. And I think the Ferrari is just about going to wrap around the outside of the Bentley there and get the job done. And did we miss the team overtake onto Nicholas Huben? Nicholas Huben went deep in towards turn 2. It allowed the Bentley to get the job done and make his way up into what is now P8, and just behind Sam Gaskell, who rather robustly shuffled his teammate out of the way not too long ago. So it'll be interesting to see how take 2 of that fight proceeds. But Boothby on the charge at the moment, waiting, of course, with Phil Menard getting those tyres up to temperature, almost getting the lead up to around a second. But it's one thing to get the lead up to that margin, it's another thing to hold on to it, withstand the pressure, not make a mistake, especially around a circuit like this. It's so easy. We saw Philip Menard get it all wrong through Cheetah Curve when he was trying to go for pole position glory. So this circuit can easily bite you back as quickly as it can deliver some fantastic racing. Just under 25 minutes of this race left to go. If you are enjoying the crazy action here that we have going on at Kyalami, do consider giving a follow to the channel. This is the Case King Pro Series, and whilst the championship could be decided today, the fight for those top 3 positions, those prize-winning positions, is going to go all the way down to the wire. And with the way that with the likes of Philip Menard, Eric Delfanta, Nicholas Huben currently finishing in reverse order relative to one another to where they stand in the championship, it is going to be absolutely nail-biting stuff for the final round of the season, so do not miss it. And we are closing in on that milestone every single week of 4,000 followers. It'd be amazing if we can just about eclipse that by the end of this championship. And a big thank you to all of those that supported over the course of this season. What an amazing season it has been. As Henrik Gamble and Alexander Krauk, they now go side by side through the Juk Sky sweep in towards Barbecue Curve they go. Crackle trying to get a switchback. Sorry, had to get a little bit on the brakes there. Couldn't quite carry the momentum through that corner that he wanted to. And now he's under pressure because that's Patrick Nagy trying to step it up the inside. He can't make it stick. Lewis Petzold, though, arriving on the scene. We've seen him be a pretty busy man in the cockpit of this Mustang over the course of this race so far. And you hear the differences in those engine tones. The McLaren kind of sounds like a bit of an annoyed wasp, really. And then meanwhile, you've just got this absolutely thunderous V8 in the front of this Mustang. Speaking of V8s in the front of cars, the Aston Martin, Nicholas Huben, has got a fantastic run out of the final corner. Side by side with Timo Karppinen. Karppinen defending the inside line. How late on the brakes does Huben want to be? The answer is it's not going to be enough. He's given a bit of a squeeze. And again, unable to make the moves stick. And he'll be looking at that clock ticking. Look at the number of cars that he would theoretically have to overtake. Oh, as Johannes Praise has a bit of a wonky moment. Not quite sure what happened to him, as has seemingly got going again. White flag out for him, as well as a bit of a squabble with Martin Lawrence and Vincent Proel kicking off further down the order. Also, last lap, eagle-eyed viewers seeing Philip Menard being that just a little bit quicker than George Boothby. They were so close lap for lap in the opening stint of the race. It's going to be a fantastic showdown to the very end of the race. What is the bets in the chat? I would imagine, you know, with the championship situation, it's starting to look fairly convincing as to where it might go. But the question is how. George Boothby, can he close out this series with a win and do it in style? Or will Philip Menard take a maiden victory on home? So I want to hear your thoughts in the chat. Do you think George Boothby is taking this one, or will it be Philip Menard in the other Mustang? They are 6 seconds clear of anyone else in this grid. Mighty performance from both of those drivers. They've been clear of the rest of the field for the entirety of this race. As we push on. And you have for Nuremberger locked under the rear wing of the fellow British car, but unable to make anything stick there. And Mustang Bestang, absolutely. And if Boothby doesn't do any mistakes, maybe. Well, I mean, yes, true, except for the fact, but I have just noticed he appears to have made a small mistake, and Philip Menard, I'm blaming that on you. I had nothing to do with that. I touched wood on the table earlier, and you called it immediately in the chat. Just a small error from George Boothby, and that's allowed Philip Menard to gauge a vital couple of tenths. And of course, those couple of tenths become ever more valuable because in the slipstream of these cars, especially the Mustang, pretty wide and tall car, punching a big old hole in the air for the South African driver to sit in behind. And we'll go on board with Philip Menard's perspective. What is it like trying to take on this crazy circuit? In actual fact, can I even... this is probably a bit ambitious. Can I be intelligent here? I can be intelligent here. There we go. So you get a bit more of a representative idea of exactly the driver's eye view of what these guys end up dealing with around this tricky track. Slipstream, but not really good place to pass. Actually, but see, how much did he gain? Of course, that's another big lap. 10th of a second from Philip Menard. He is pushing. George Boothby will know it. He doesn't have to start defending just yet. Oh, it's so incredible. These GT3 cars, of course, they are decent in terms of downforce. They are good handling cars, but they're still pretty hefty. And you see these little micro corrections as these guys dancing on the limit, getting the car just a little bit of slip angle, a little bit of rotation early in the braking zone to carry that momentum as best as they can through the corner. Again, a little flick of the wheel, let the back end start to drift out, but catch it, foot planted to the floor as early as you can on the exit. And they dance their way with each of these cars. Absolutely beautiful to see. I think there's been some sort of calamity between Martin Lawrence and Vincent Proel. They haven't changed positions, I don't believe, but Vincent Proel has lost 2.5 seconds on this lap, so there's definitely been some sort of form of shenanigans there as Philip Menard again finds another 10th of a second or so towards the hairpin. And his tyres, I mean, there will be one lap fresher. And it's not really going to be too much of a tyre advantage over the number 1 car. But every thousandth of a second counts. These guys have been absolutely nose to tail all race long. And they continue so once again. Of course, track limit warnings as well is something these guys have to be a little bit nervous about, as Philippe Manard really playing it with the edge of track limits there. But he is gaining. He is very, very close to the back end of George Boothby now. Times come in. It's another 600ths of a second gained. And then we go down the start-finish straight. 3/10 between himself and George Boothby. George is on 2 cuts. There we go then. That's the situation there within. These guys, they'll be mindful not to get themselves a track limit penalty. It is a race-changing amount of time that you end up losing if you end up getting that drive-through penalty. Not quite as bad as a stop-go 30, but pretty brutally punishing nonetheless. Meanwhile, Sam Gaskell finding some good pace behind Justin Stubenrauch, of course. I think that car might be running around still a little bit on the damage side, but managing to hold back the Lamborghini driver for now. Also got Lauren Prima squamming their way behind Michael Frey in the Porsche. But most of our fights just has 27 seconds worth of damage. My goodness, he's keeping some good pace then, all things considered. Big bit of damage to Stubenrauch. We saw the huge impact that he had on the run towards Sunset Curve on the opening lap. How he actually kept it even vaguely pointing in the right direction, I'm unsure, but thankfully managed to do so and still on target for a very respectable result here. But 4 big fights inside of the top 10 at the moment. Philippe Manard versus George Boothby for the race lead. A 3-way fight still going on between Whitehead, Delfanta and Aidan Walsingham. Anyway, Sam Gaskell applying the pressure to his teammate Justin Stubenrauch and Nicholas Huben, desperately trying to fight for any positions. What was going on there? A little bit of a shuffle between cars in towards the final corner. It looks like a very good run out of the last turn for Sam Gaskell, and this could be Justin Stubenrauch in trouble. No, of course it's not. I forgot he's in the Mustang. So he pulls away on the run towards turn 2. Keeps the Lamborghini once again at bay, but Sam Gaskell trying to continue that fine run of form from last week at Imola. Not looking like he's necessarily going to repeat his podium success, but still finding pace in a car is not typically able to achieve this sort of performance. So extra brownie points for the British driver on that front. But he makes his way up behind the Mustang. You can see just every time they make their way through a corner, that Lamborghini is just a bit kinder to make his way towards the inside of the apex. The mid-engine platform allowing opportunities to come about for that car, as is also Aidan Walsingham gluing himself to the rear of Eric Delfanta. I don't think it's been a good lap from the Italian driver there, coming under a lot of pressure from the British driver in the Mustang. We're fantastic to see some of these scraps, but it also once again goes to show the tremendous pace of our top 2. They are 6 seconds clear of the rest of the field, and with 14 minutes left to go, it's still Boothby then, after that undercut paid off, that leads ahead of Philippe Manard. But I have a feeling that it is going to be fireworks all the way to the line. Gregor Schill bring out the white flag for just a moment, maybe with a little bit of an excursion over at Cheetah Curve. And again in towards the hairpin. One of the best overtaking opportunities around this circuit for the Manard. Trying to size up George Boothby, seeing how much he can break later. But of course, other than the slipstream, there's next to no difference in terms of racing performance from these cars. Identical platforms and almost identical talent in the cockpit of these two cars. Philippe Manard and George Boothby ahead above the rest, and have been since the very start of the race. Whoever wins this one will be very, very proud and chuffed, because they would have had to work extremely hard for it and be so consistent lap after lap. They've been like this from the very start of the race. It's not often that we have these situations. We sometimes have the fights that progress through the race, the fights that come to fruition on the final series of laps, but it's very rare that we end up with two cars being separated by just merely a few tenths of a second, lap after lap, all the way from beginning to end. Nicholas Huben with a good run downhill through mineshaft as he thinking about manoeuvre on Tiba Carpenter. He just can't. The Bentley so wide and so fast down the hill as well, keeping the Aston Martin driver at bay. Have to wait for another opportunity then. Menard dropping away just a little bit as well last time around, but in towards the braking zone. He is really applying the pressure to the back of George Boothby, as is Nicholas Huben. He's so locked under the rear wing, but he just can't ever gain enough of a straight line speed advantage. Or you can see Carpenter, he started, it wasn't a really defensive move, but it was definitely just a little bit of an earlier turn in than usual, just considering that Huben on that occasion may have actually thought about sending it. I'm sure the thought suddenly crossed his mind, but wanting to make sure he doesn't have any further mistakes. You know, arguably his opening points of the season was so consistent, they were so good, and then it was, you know, felt like it was around Spa onwards. Spa onwards, you know, felt like a little bit of a turning point for Nicholas Huben, and just didn't quite have the pace, didn't quite have the run of form, the consistency, made mistakes on the days when he was quick. And you know, that in itself is often so important as well. You know, that capitalising on the days where you are fast is just as vital as the days of trying to bounce back or hold on, salvage, you know, positions, whatever. And you know, ultimately why that consistency across the season ends up mattering more than anything. Meanwhile, Lauren Prima and Michael Frey having a side-by-side action as Prima through on the Porsche driver. Mustang advantage in a straight line speed, and of course will absolutely rocket ship his way down through mineshaft, stopping any further attack from the Porsche behind, as Sam Gaskell and Justin Stubenrauch. As an actual fact, was that a mistake? I think it was a mistake from Stubenrauch. The Stubenrauch has made an error through Cheetah Curve there, and Sam Gaskell said thank you very much and was immediately on the attack. And I think a little bit of a wiggle there from Sam Gaskell. He now makes his way up into P6 in the Lamborghini. Still a mighty and impressive performance from the British driver, who has been rising from week to week and driving exceptionally well. Heard last week from Luke Whitehead, I've been practicing with this man in the number 8 car, and how his pace and form has bit by bit come to fruition. Made for a very happy podium. That maybe not the happiest of podiums that we've had, of course. Eric Del Fanta a little bit frustrated, bitter. Bitter's definitely the wrong word, but definitely frustrated within himself of the mistake that he made on the opening lap to lose the race lead, and then really never been in a position after that in order to fight it out with the likes of Gaskell and Luke Whitehead. But is having a stronger, more consistent showing today in race trim. Again, glued to the rear of Luke Whitehead, who will be struggling straight line speed by the time they get to the bottom of the hill, but that Porsche always able to put his power down very nicely, courtesy of that engine being towards the back, and that flat 6 and naturally aspirated torque and acceleration is absolutely mighty. It's so good in some of these twisty circuits, some of these twisty sectors. It will, of course, then start to lose out a bit here. But as we go on board the rear diffuser, you can see the gap up at 0.4 seconds between himself and Eric Del Fanta. Does it close at all by the end of the straight? By a tenth. And that is all she wrote for the charge from the Honda driver. Meanwhile, Tiba Carpenter and Nicholas Huben still scrapping away, and a little bit of an update from the last 15 minutes. Well, ever since the undercut paid off for George Boothby, he has not looked back since. Your top 2 staying as they were, with Boothby leading the race ahead of Philip Menard. Luke Whitehead, Eric Del Fanta and Aidan Walsingham, a fantastic scrap for the podium positions. And then Nicholas Huben right now still stuck behind Tiba Carpenter unable to make his way up by any cars. And with some additional scrapping further down the order. The dynamic nature of this race continuing. Philippe Menard, once again, has not let go of the opportunity for a race win. And these guys, they're so close in terms of pace. The peak pace of this race so far is less than a tenth of a second apart. We haven't been able to see what Philip could have maybe achieved with that, because he was, of course, straight into the slipstream of George Boothby and then unable to make use of that clean air. Meanwhile, Huben might have a good opportunity here. He's certainly going to try for it. They've got Nuremberger behind to try to see if he can go for the over and under as an ambitious one to make work. But again, confident in the Bentley, despite how big that car is, it sometimes just rotates so well. And Team Confident has been driving it, for the most part, pretty fantastically this season. He had a couple of wonky moments in the early stages, there's no doubt about that, but he has been delivering some fantastic races. There is no doubt about that. As a Mustang, prettiest horsey in ACC, I could not agree more. It is by far the prettiest horsey. And as you can see, here in the world of low fuel motorsport, we take technical terms very seriously, and only here on the stream. So the two horses out in front of Philippe Menard and George Boothby squabbling away once again, applying the pressure through the clubhouse chicane. And he's been staring at the back of that Mustang for so long. Absolute role reversal between the first and second halves of these races. But of course, it is only those positions at the moment you cross the line to finish the race that it really matters. Big thank you for all the support on the stream and of course across the season as well, and all the kind words in the chat. They're very much appreciated, and glad you are enjoying this one. Whilst it looks like right now that George Boothby, as things stand, would become your champion, certainly don't quite know how he's going to do it just yet. He doesn't need to win. Doesn't need to do much at all as it stands at the moment, but he will certainly want to come out of this race with P1 attached to his name. He's the number one man on the platform. He's number one man in the server for a reason. And number 32 guy, excuse me, of Alexander Krauk has had a bit of a wonky moment further down the order. I don't think he's collected or had an incident with anybody in the process, so thankfully nothing too race ruining. But 5.5 minutes left to go. We're looking at about 4 laps of this race left, if I'm not mistaken. Philippe Menard just cannot simply find an opportunity through. We've had some other penalties come through with 5 seconds for the number 28 car. That belongs to Dean Zinobovic. A 15-second time penalty for number 35. And I feel like I saw that car a second ago, but I can't. Oh, meanwhile, as Van Rossum versus Louis Petzold side towards the Cheetah curve. They survive that one. How about Ethan Faulkner versus Samir Foch? Going door to door. Samir a little bit wide over the curve. Keeps into the white line zone. Just about keeps Faulkner into the white lines. Man, the cheers. Oh, there's a little bit of contact on the exit as Sammy was trying to go for a switchback there. But in the end, it will be Faulkner that gets the job done, and he will start. He will continue on in 22nd place. Meanwhile, inside of the top 10, your battle for the lead, 0.4 of a second between George Boothby and Philippe Menard. Nicholas Huben versus Team Carpenter, a battle that has raged on for a while now. But it is so far the Finnish driver that has come out on top of that one. Don't think I can see another 35 in the server. So it must be one of those that left over the course of the race. Number 27 is Patrick Nagy, who got a 5-second time penalty. And then the number 15 that got a 5-second time penalty. And that car belongs to Martin Lawrence. There's meanwhile Nicholas Huben. Now he thinks about a move. It's a very, very late attempt on the brakes. He forces the issue with Carpenter. They almost make a little bit of contact on the exit. And flashing the lights there. I'm not really sure why. Certainly is, certainly would seem like he was, applying the pressure fairly. If anything, it was pretty heads-up driving from Carpenter there to avoid leaving too much space for the Mustang, but not closing the gap too early. And once the Subaru have a livery, and I'm not quite sure on that front, but hopefully maybe for the finale we can get a livery from him. And Honda or the Merc looks the best. Well, let's do a little bit of a review. We'll do a bit of a review in context with Eric Del Fanta, who is applying the pressure to the back of Luke Whitehead. He is merely just a couple of tenths of a second behind, as we have a little bit of an onboard and an external shot as well, all the way around the outside, trying to see what he could achieve. Luke Whitehead, though, managing to stay in position, stay on top of that, racing the lines he needs to race, and in doing so has kept that number 10 car behind for the time being, but he is running out of time. There's no doubt about it. We're on the penultimate lap of this race as it stands at the moment. As meanwhile, where's our resident Mercedes driver of the season? Here he is, Tony Mahoney, in this car, and a fantastic looking car indeed. We've also got the Nissan is cute. We've got Merc and Lambo. Honda all day. My God, this is quite an igniting topic on the whole front, isn't it? I must admit, you might be surprised by this, everybody, but I'm going to say the Boatley. More so because I just really like the rear wing and the diffuser because it's just comically large. That's my main principle of reasoning. Beyond that, I can't help it. It's the Boatley on that front. Biased. Well, I have to be biased on something. I try to be as unbiased as I can. But every now and again, you have to be biased on something. But we turn our attention back then to the battle for the lead, the penultimate lap of this race, as we look to close out the 11th race of the season, where we are looking to have an 11th different winner. And this is going to be a special victory for one driver or the other. George Boothby currently in the hot seat in that P1 spot. Arguably one more prime opportunity for Philip Minnaar. So you can see he's really giving it the full beans through Cheetah Curve. One more opportunity into the braking zone of turn 2. But that gap, I'm not sure, that's not the closest it's been. So I think he's going to be too far away for now. But the final lap of the race has been started. George Boothby looking to have this a special victory. Winning races will have never felt this special for the British driver. He's the winningest driver in this championship's history. But it's been a while for the number 1 car since he's been on the top step of the podium. But not only would this victory be his first of the season, add to that ever-growing tally, it would be the one that closes out this championship campaign that's eluded him for so long. And Philip Minnaar, the local boy on the track, hunting down the man in front and aiming for his first race win in Pro Series history. It's been tantalisingly close before, and we could be looking for it to be tantalisingly close again. Florian Duerklop has brought out the yellow flags further down the grid. You think he's still in trouble. He is in trouble. He's rejoining out of barbecue curve there, so I'm sure the stewards are going to be having a busy time. But into the hairpin they go. Boothby remaining unflappable with just a handful of corners left to go. Philip Minnaar trying to build up all sorts of momentum through Mineshaft and see if there's any opportunity to take down a man who has stood on that top step more times than anybody else. 2 corners to go through Cheetah Curve. You never know if it's going to bite you, but on this time, it hasn't for either of them. And George Boothby, he took pole position. He lost it at the start, but he kept his head. He brought it back on strategy, and after it eluded him for so long, George Boothby wins in Season 15, and you're your Case King Pro Series champion for the first time. And he is going to be jumping for joy, I have no doubt. Philip Minnaar, commiserations to the local boy that finishes P2. Whitehead P3, chased down by Delfano Walsingham all the way to the end. A charge to the line between Carpenter, Nuremberger and Huben. Huben loses out there, and also with it, after today's rather disastrous campaign from him, he'll be frustrated. It will be to the fight to the end to hold on to P2 in the championship, let alone to take P1, because that honour goes to George Boothby, the winningest driver in Pro Series history, finally takes that accolade that has eluded him for so long, and he is going to be an extremely happy man. We've got some other fights all the way to the end of this race. Testament to the crazy action that these guys have continued to put on. It's going to be a drag race towards the line between Buzov and Rossum. I think Van Rossum might have just about managed. He has by a few thousandths of a second. Even inside of a top 30, action all the way to the end. The Case King Pro Series always delivering the goods. But George Boothby, it is his day in formation as well. And you have to say, well, Veloce, they've always put on a good campaign, and George Boothby has certainly been the one to constantly be up there, but it's been his teammates Luke Whitehead, Maciej Malinowski that have been the ones to bring home the goods. But George Boothby has finally done it. He is your champion of Season 15 and your champion for the first time in Pro Series history. What a fantastic evening and a well-deserved series of donuts there from your champ. He ends this campaign in style. We will hopefully look to talk to him very shortly. But what an evening of action. What a season. And even now, we still have had 11 different winners in as many races. I just want to say that again, just to put that into context. That is just so ridiculous. We've had championships where we've had drivers winning half of the season. You know, we've had drivers having a 50% win rate across the championship. Never have we seen this level of dynamicness amongst the grid. It has been incredible, but on the day where maybe it didn't matter the most, but it will feel the best, George Boothby has taken to a top step on the podium once again. And absolutely fantastic stuff all around. We will look to bring drivers in for their interviews in just a moment. We've got the P2, P3 guys from today. I'm sure George Boothby will be just taking a moment, a little bit of a breather, to first of all calm down from the craziness of that race and let the adrenaline leave his body for just a moment, and we will get everybody in. So we'll bring him in from P3 in the field. A race win last week, a P3 today. Luke, wonderful to have you back in the comms box once again. I imagine you're pretty happy and chuffed with the podium finish, and of course also celebrations all round within the Veloce camp. How are you feeling after that crazy one at Kyalami?
Well, first off, good evening, John. I gotta say, I didn't expect to be seeing you so soon, but I'm not complaining nonetheless. Bit of a shock to be here, to be honest, after I said last week that the bot plat was really good, and I still maintain that, and that this is a pretty weak track. But maybe it wasn't as weak as I thought I was, And we came home P3, a bit unexpected. It lacked a bit of pace in general, I think, to the front guys. But I'm really happy with not just my result, but the team result. Aiden P5, nearly getting P4. And George, not only winning the race and being the 11th winner of the season, he finally wins the championship. Finally. It's been so long that he's been second and second over and over, but he finally gets it. So I couldn't be happier for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, yeah. I cannot wait to speak to him very shortly. I'm sure he is going to be grinning from ear to ear. But yeah, absolutely a fantastic day amongst the Veloce drivers. And of course, Aiden as well with that result. Some things on the table for him to fight for in the closing stages of the championship into the final round. Top three, second, third, fourth, all very close as it stands for those other remaining prize winning positions. But yeah, a crazy race. I'm interested to get your perspective in the Porsche from today, because the likes of the Mustangs, super quick in a straight line. The Porsche not always the easiest to keep other cars behind. How tricky was it at times when you're being bear down upon by the likes of Del Fanta, Walsingham, in around this circuit to keep those behind and try to keep it all under control for that P3 finish?
To be fair, the first lap was the scariest bit, I think. Obviously having two Mustangs behind me directly, and then a Honda alongside, which is really quick off the line. Trying to not just maybe gain a position, but even to maintain position, it was really difficult. And I was actually quite lucky to have Delphanta behind me rather than Aiden. I honestly thought that, like, as much from a team perspective, it'd be nice for Aiden to get through. I knew that he'd get past me as soon as he got past Delphanta. So I was like, I kind of hope for my sake that the Honda stays there for a bit. And I think, yeah, like obviously we had a couple of close shaves where the Porsche just drifted and nearly exploded. You know, it's just a Porsche thing. But you know, we luckily kept it clean, kept it safe, and Delphante didn't really get close enough to be a proper threat. So yeah, really happy. And as I say, forgot to mention GG's to Philip as well. Shame he couldn't get his first win in Pro Series, but he was bloody close. They both the top two, and even the guys around the top 10 drove amazingly this race. So GG's to everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Philip, I imagine, is going to be once again a slightly forlorn with that result. So close and almost on home turf as well. But yeah, an incredible drive from him, nonetheless, dueling out with George all the way to the end. Now, of course, sure that you'll have a lot to celebrate for the rest of the evening, but I do want to cast your mind forward to the finale for the season. We'll be heading to Bathurst, a crazy circuit. Certainly has had us on the edge of our seats on plenty of times in Pro Series history. Any thoughts or feelings as to how that one may treat you in the Porsche?
Very bittersweet, honestly. Obviously, it's a 90-minute race, which historically for the Porsche, especially this season, has been rough. It's going to be around 28 degrees, which is very hot, which again for the Porsche is rough. But it's also my favorite track, and I've always gone well there. So honestly, it's anyone's guess. I think the car can be decent, but obviously the conditions are very much not at play for the car. But as I say, I love Bathurst. I've always gone well there, so hopefully this can be no different. But you know, we'll be full sending it and seeing where we end up, as we always do.
Absolutely, I have no doubt. Yeah, Luke. Whenever we go on board with you, yeah, the steering wheel's pointing in opposite directions about 10 times a second, but one way or another, you get it through the corners. And yeah, Bathurst, such a proper driver circuit. So I have no doubt that you'll be on fine form there. Luke, big congratulations for the podium stay, and of course, celebrations all around in the Veloce camp. We'll speak to George very shortly, and look forward to seeing how get on at Mount Panorama next week, buddy.
Thank you very much, John. Take care of yourself, mate.
Take care, buddy. Fantastic stuff to talk to the man that finished P3 today. And whilst he drove an absolutely fantastic race from start to finish, it was an immense drive, Philip, and on home soil as well. And that win once again, so tantalizingly close. But you know, if it's any consolation, you've been beaten by arguably the very best that the Pro Series has seen in terms of statistics from George Boothby. Immense amount of congratulations from your performance today, but I imagine some disappointment as well. Tell us a little bit about how you're feeling with that race.
Yeah, it's mixed again, but honestly, I can't wipe the smile off my face because that was such a good race. I mean, I think both George and I kept each other on our toes, and especially he kept me on my toes in the first stint, and then we swapped the roles, and I kept him on his toes. Man, I'm honestly a bit lost for words because that was a really intense race. But yeah, the only thing that's on my mind now is just I'm so happy for George to win the Pro Series. Like that's insane. I'm so happy for him.
I feel like it's smiles all around from a lot of people. But yeah, Philip, you drove absolutely incredibly, and it's not often the case that we have a race where you've got two cars dueling it out from start to finish within basically half a second of each other every lap. And obviously, you were on both sides of that today, and unfortunately, the worst side of the two, arguably, and when it counted at the finish line at the end. But tell us a bit about each of those perspectives. The first stint, you've got George Boothby locked in behind you, applying the pressure to you every single lap. How hard is it to maintain that concentration? And equally, in the end of the race, trying to eke out any more performance when you're already feeling like you're on the limit. To try to get something over, such a talented and unflappable guy like George. How, what is that like inside the cockpit of that Mustang?
Well, I kind of learned how to deal with pressure really early when I was younger. When I was like I think 15 or 14 with karting, and I know George also has a karting background. You just all you do in that scenario is you just look forward and you focus on your own race, and if you make a mistake, then you make a mistake, and what you can do is defend. But luckily, I didn't do that, so I got to keep George behind me, and it's so difficult to overtake here, especially obviously if you're both in a Mustang, if you're both in the same machinery. Um, the problem is that Constantina effect, especially at the hairpin and at the last corner. You just can't get that momentum out of the corner versus the guy ahead of you. So, I kind of had that in the back of my mind. So it kind of reassured me, like, hey, it's going to be hard for George to come past. So yeah, it is pretty tough, but I think I'm used to it now by now. So yeah.
Yeah, you've certainly been in the thick of the action at the pointy end of the grid time and time again, and yeah, absolutely. I think myself and a lot of those in chat know that your first win in the Pro Series will certainly come sooner rather than later. Maybe even at the final round of the season. We're heading to Bathurst. Mount Panorama is a pretty daunting task. 90 minutes around there, tricky circuit as well, and certainly we've had plenty of shenanigans there in the past, but it certainly puts on some crazy action, even sometimes crazier than we can imagine. Any thoughts or feelings for how you might end up going there?
Yeah, I'm a bit worried about the Ford because I have a feeling it's going to be a bit of a death trap, a flying coffin down Skyline. But I'm hoping that's not the case. I mean, I'm pretty comfortable in Bathurst. I've driven. I think arguably these last 2 rounds have been or will be my all-time favorite tracks. I think for George as well, I know he loves Kyalami, and I literally live like an hour away from Kyalami, so naturally I have to love the track. And Bathurst, it's a driver's track. It's kind of like Marmite, you either love Bathurst or you hate Bathurst, and I think I'm definitely in the I love Marmite category. Bathurst.
I also feel like that opinion very quickly changes depending on how your race plays out as well. Where sometimes it could be you can be having the time of your life for about 20 laps straight, and it takes one wonky moment through Skyline, all of a sudden it's the most terrible circuit on the planet. But yeah, absolutely, and I love the analogy of the flying coffin as well. So I'd be very intrigued to see how each of those cars play out. We're talking to Luke a moment ago as well, and the Porsche, it's a handful enough with his steering inputs at the best of time. I'm sure he'll be having an interesting time throughout sector as well. So it is bound to deliver some fantastic racing. But Philip, congratulations once again on another brilliant drive and podium. I know that win agonizingly close, but it will come soon enough, I have no doubt. So you've done yourself very proud once again in tonight's race, and best of luck for next week when we head to Mount Panorama for the last race of the season.
Thanks, cheers.
Cheers, Philip. Take care. Great stuff to talk to Philip there. And now, the interview that we have been waiting for perhaps not just over the course of this evening, but an interview we've been waiting for what feels like months upon months, seasons upon seasons, have finally come to fruition. Because George Boothby, you are a Case King Pro Series champion. It is complete. Tell us, how are you feeling after that one? You are on mute, George, and I don't know.
Sorry.
2 weeks in a row. 2 weeks in a row. How are you feeling, mate?
Yeah, it's years in the making, man. Like, I feel like I've been P2 just over and over and over again. I think P3 last season, and yeah, it's just always been so close, but so far, and all it took was the most OP car in the game, and then finally I managed to get the P1. So yeah, I'm really happy.
It's okay. Yes, obviously the Mustang has been a quick car this season. There is no doubt, but equally, there is an extremely large amount of Mustangs that are featured in this order. So it's one of those, it always balances out on that front. And I imagine your total of wins in the Pro Series. Like I say, you have that fantastic statistic of being the winningest driver in this series history. And so whilst most wins usually being added to that tally, it's always nice to win. But today, I imagine just felt that little bit different. That sense of relief that you came across the line. What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, this has always been a good track for me. I just love this circuit. It flows nice, and I think it's like the first circuit I like proper hot lapped a bit when I first got this game. So, yeah, when I saw we were coming here, I was like, come on, like if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen here. Like Bathurst next week, there's a huge chance I'd just crash and die. So, because that's what happened last season, So, yeah, I came in, I thought, yeah, this is it. So I put the practice in. I was able to do the laps, and yeah, Minar was insane. Philip was absolutely crazy, but yeah, a bit of a strategy call in the middle, did an undercut, and yeah, managed to get the win. So it was probably the most nervous 30 minutes of my life, but yeah, we got over the line and made it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were just talking to Phil Minar a moment ago on that front of how close you guys were throughout that entire race. I mean, it's very rare that we have battles that feature like that, which I feel like has just made closing out your championship campaign. We've got one race to go, but the winning acquisition of that title, just being that ever sweeter than it possibly could have even be, because that fight. Half a second basically between you, the entire race, the undercuts coming to fruition, and so close, on that pit exit. You saw, Philip coming out of the pits. How confident were you that you're going to be able to pull off that move around the outside at turn 2, and just, was it just full send, kind of do or die, break as late as possible, or what was the mindset at that moment?
I went into the pit box and I thought, like the gap behind is big enough where if I miss my box or mess up the pit stop, as long as I don't get a drive through on the entry, I can just send it. So I got nowhere to lose. So I just absolutely nailed my pit stop. Like it was absolutely perfect. A little bit of a cautious entry, but the actual pit stop itself was perfect. And then, yeah, the outlap as well. Like the mid sector was perfect. This car's really hard initially on cold tires to get working, and so you got to like drift it a bit. So you're really on the edge on lap 1 and 2. But yeah, just sent it, and I guess I got a little bit lucky and was able to just hold it all together for a lap and just barely got ahead. I don't think Philip had a bad in lap or anything like that or a pit stop. I think I just went full send mode, and it was a lot on the line, a lot of risks I took doing it. But if it doesn't pay off, oh well. If it does pay off, you look pretty good. So. I'm super happy. I never thought I'd get an undercut to work in this car, but it did. So let's go.
Yeah, you were commended in the chat as well for being one of the only drivers to make both the undercut and overcut strategy work. It's you never quite know how it's going to play out, but yeah, you absolutely delivered that strategy to perfection, and a mighty effort from yourself this evening to take that win, and with it take the championship. Now, of course, that means heading into the final race of the season at Bathurst. It's a bit of a pressure off situation. You can, I'm sure you'll still give it your all, but fundamentally, maybe not quite, that same feeling of tension around that circuit. It'll still keep you on your toes, no doubt. It is Bathurst after all. But any thoughts or feelings going into that one? You're just gonna look, enjoy it, send it around there, see what happens, or do you think you're gonna be able to try to close out the season, maybe being our first repeat winner, as ridiculous as a statistic as that is, of season 15?
I don't know, to be honest. I'm either, for the stream, I'll either try a last to first and see how I do, although my elo is going to be destroyed if I try that, I think. But I'll either do that or, yeah, go for a win. I don't know. I'll decide this week, see how things go.
Fantastic stuff. Well, you've got 7 days to let this evening soak in before you end up dialed in and having to try to wield this rather gnarly Mustang one last time for the season. But George, massive congratulations. It's certainly a championship win that comes somehow as no surprise to anyone, but is one that has put smiles on everyone's faces. It's been a long time coming, and it's finally come to fruition. So there's a lot of people in the chat, fellow drivers, your teammates as well, of course, they're all extremely happy for you, and a big congratulations for getting the job done. A true champion's drive this evening to take the title. So amazing stuff from you, George. Enjoy it. Smile all the way throughout the evening, and we look forward to seeing you for the finale next week at Mount Panorama.
Oh, thank you so much, man. Appreciate it. Take care.
Take care, George. Have a good one.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Fantastic stuff there to talk to your season 15 champion. What a season it has been. It has just delivered every single time that we have gone racing. And I think in terms of George taking the title, whilst I would have loved a championship decider all the way down to the wire, you have to say it's still a completely deserving way for him to wrap up his campaign. And the fact we've still got no repeat winners just is ridiculous. We've had 11 races, 11 different winners. We've only had our first repeat pole sitter, and that was this evening. Can we go through an entire championship? We're not going to have a championship winner without taking a victory over the course of a season. We'll have to wait for another season to come by before we end up having something as crazy as that. But can we make it throughout the season with only one single winner for each time? Because my goodness, it's just incredible that we've had that as a statistic, and really testament to the way these guys have been driving the crazy close margins that we have had throughout this championship. Fantastic stuff indeed, and cannot wait to see how each of those guys get on. We'll go through confirmation of tonight's results. We've also had Kylo, our resident statistician, in the chat as well, giving you that idea and the picture around the championship scenario, because Philip Menard is firmly in the hot seat, as well as Eric Del Fanta for that top 3 set of positions. And Nicholas Hoban, it's dire times. He would really have to pull something special, I think, at Bathurst to hold on to P2 in the championship, because he is being pursued very closely by the likes of Menard, Del Fanta and Aidan Walsingham. Walsingham with more of an outside chance than the other two, but certainly outside chances never mean impossible. And the way that the Pro Series delivers its action every single week, you can never rule out if it's a possibility, no matter how fine the margins. You have to take it into consideration. What an incredible season we have had. For tonight, though, George Boothby, your race winner, wasn't quite a lights to flag victory from leading the whole thing, but he got the job done in the end over Philip Menard by just 0.3 of a second. The class of the field, those two, with Whitehead, Del Fanta, Walsingham, great fight with them. Gaskell, Stubenrauch, Carpenter, Nuremberger, Hoban, Bischoff, Schill, Prima, Frey and Price to the end of the top 15, with Duicott, Vassner, Proel, Lawrence, Kufel, Zunobovic, Faulkner, Foch, Edvardson, Akzitkov, Mahoney, Meyer, Gamble, Petzold and Van Rossum to the end of your top 30. And in the final few positions in the field, final finishers, Buzov, Gates, Nagy, and Krauk, with DNS from Brioche, Knudsen, and Jardier, unfortunately, with that game crash. He'll be hoping to come back more strongly next week for Bathurst. It's a circuit that he loves, and he'll be hoping that, seeing as he is usually able to capitalise on a lot of carnage, a lot of chaos, that maybe that will be a track where he can once again get a mighty victory at the tail end of the season. And the Aston Martin could be a car that goes pretty strong there. Good straight line speed, good stability over the top of the hill, so who knows? Certainly is something that could happen. But after a crazy evening of action, that brings this evening to a close. George Boothby as your champion, and Kyalami sending us towards then the final race of the season for Mount Panorama. Thank you everybody so much for watching. If you have enjoyed the stream and are looking forward to season 15 coming to an amazing close, we're just 40 followers away from that almighty 4,000 milestone. Can we see that hit by the end of the season? It'd be lovely if we could, but do consider giving the channel a follow if you did enjoy tonight's action and want to stay in tune with all that the Pro Series has to offer going forward. And also you can head over to our YouTube channel as well. You can subscribe over there and relive George's championship winning drive over on there. Subscribe there to stay in touch with all of the VODs makers way over there as well. Some wonderful highlights reels as well from our German compatriots as well to enjoy. And if you also want to give a little bit of extra generosity to the Twitch channel as well, you can subscribe to the channel here, and big thank you to those that do so. All those contributions do help the hidden heroes that make all of this possible and that bring this incredible racing to your screens. So big thank you for those that do that. But having all of you here cheering on in the chat and giving all of your wonderful support is all I could ask for. If you have been sitting at home, though, thinking that whilst it's wonderful not watching these guys go toe-to-toe, that you fancy having a little bit of a gander at getting behind the wheel yourself, then you can do so. Head over to lowfuelmotorsport.com, get yourself signed up, get yourself a license, and you can work your way up through the ranks and get into all sorts of wonderful series like the Case King Pro Series, a daily racing endurance duo cup, all sorts, you name it, so much goodness to enjoy over there. And if ACC isn't quite your cup of tea, you can head over for Assetto Corsa 1, the OG simulator. So much fun to dive into there. There's some crazy stuff and lots to enjoy on that platform. Still going strong after this many years, and LFM bringing it in a whole new fashion. And of course, if you fancy a little bit of voluntary off-roading rather than some of the excursions that we had from some of our misfortunate drivers of the evening, then you can also take to WRC, the Club Championship on there. I'll hit a tree if I do that, so I'll probably be staying away from that one, but I'm sure there's lots of you guys will be able to enjoy to its full extent that wonderful, wonderful sim as well. So much to enjoy and look forward to. If you also just want to be a part of this incredible ever-growing community, you can also join the Discord server, make some friends, share all good things sim racing and real racing. You'll be welcomed in with open arms, share pictures of your cats and dogs as well if you like. We're a nice bunch, and it's wonderful to have all of you in the server as well. So big thank you for all of the incredible support. Season 15 may have had its champion crown, but that doesn't mean that the action stopped just yet. We have one more race to go, and 90 minutes at Mount Panorama is certainly going to be a way to wrap up what has been a crazy Season 15 of the Case King Pro Series. Will we have a 12th different winner of the season? I must admit, I kind of hope so, because that's a pretty cool statistic, but who knows? One way or another, all I do know is it's going to be amazing action all the way to the end, so do not miss it. Look forward to seeing as many of that as possible next week. So thank you everybody so much for watching. Before tonight then, it's goodbye.